I'm Bill Shannon. I'm president of the Chatham Railroad Museum Association. I'm currently standing in the Chatham Railroad Museum. We're the managers of the museum. The building is owned by the Village of Chatham. We have a legal agreement with them to operate the museum. A lot of interesting things in here. I think one of the more interesting in this room, this is the logo of the Chicago and Alton Railroad, which formerly operated the track that's currently in Chatham. It's a handmade, like a rug, one of our members' wives made. And to the left of it are some pictures of GM&O, which also ran on the tracks through Chatham years back, and other railroad equipment that came through. And most over there, this handy-dandy little cart, I mentioned this is a freight room. This was used like to move heavy boxes and stuff around. And a lot of times, and especially on a bigger station, a big box came, there was an agency called Railway Express Agency. It operated a freight service, kind of analogous to UPS today. And we do have a sign for Railway Express Agency, which got mounted overhead here. But anyway, back to the lower things, get off my lofty heights here. The display case here has items all relating to the GM&O Railroad. GM&O Gulf, Mobile, and Ohio. It ran from Mobile, Alabama on the Gulf all the way to Chicago, coming right through Chatham on its way from Chicago to St. Louis and on down. And this station was built by the predecessor, Chicago and Alton, in 1902. Replaced the building, the original depot. The first train through Chatham was 1852, and that depot burned in 1902, and they immediately replaced it with the current building we're in now. So there's kind of a little background on the building. In the cabinet, display cabinet here, are various items relating to this building, this railroad, just different things. There's a ink blotter from Chicago and Alton Railroad, some timetables, just a variety of different items. One of the items that I found interesting is from the Chicago Railroad Fair back in the 40s. An advertisement for Hamilton watches. Railroad men used watches years ago. Of course, they still do, but they were very critical to know when the trains were coming and going. And Hamilton was one of the primary makers. One thing I think is interesting, the last gentleman that was the agent here, his widow donated the keys to the depot. It's a bunch of different keys. And anyway, she said, he carried them all the time. It fit every lock in this building. And like I mentioned before, pictures of different trains there. This is tail end of a GM&O passenger train going through Springfield in the snow. Picture of it coming up above it. Advertisement from Chicago and Alton. Take a train to the aviation meet in Chicago, August 12 to 20. Except it doesn't say the year, but obviously, considering it shows a biplane and a steam engine, would have been very early 20th century, no doubt. Moving over to this wall is pictures of different GM&O trains that were typical of what they ran coming through Chatham. Of course, not only Chatham, but Auburn, Verdun, Girard, clear on down all the towns all the way to St. Louis. I'm not sure standing here exactly which picture is what, but anyway, it's just a general overview. And then up here, actually, that is a window. The window blind is pulled down on right now, but it is a rectangular window. But on the shelf is a selection of different lanterns that were used by the railroads. Some of these right here were inspectors' lanterns, or just a lantern to see with, kerosene lantern. The orange lantern is interesting. It has a blue lens on top, and anytime a railroad engine or a car was being worked on, the rules said they had to put a blue flag or a blue flashing light at the ends of it. That meant don't move that. Somebody could be underneath of it working. And actually, a railroad employee could get fired if they moved the car, as long as that blue light was there. Then some lanterns with red globes, red, of course, to signal trains to stop. A couple more of those inspection lanterns. This is an interesting photo here. I don't know how well it shows, but behind the engines is a string of yellow boxcars. They're refrigerated cars to keep things cold. It's an entire train load of bananas that the GM&O was hauling from down at the Gulf up well, heading towards Chicago, probably. This picture here was one of their premier passenger trains back in the days of steam. Picture was taken back in the 40s. Very, you might say, gaudy engine, red and black paint. And I'm sure probably some of you people have been to Union Station in St. Louis. It's restored and, you know, businesses in there and stuff. But this is a picture back in its prime. They had this big covered archway over the tracks for passengers. And a picture of a couple of the GM&O trains getting ready to depart Union Station in St. Louis. Of course, that's a picture of another station, small ones. And these chairs, they're not necessarily GM&O, but they are out of a railroad passenger car that, you know, would have been years ago, people riding. The train would have been seated on them. And of course, more pictures of the trains. That's pretty well, I mean, there are a lot of other GM&O, etc. items scattered in other parts of the building, but that's pretty much what we have right in this room as far as the GM&O railroad.